Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Salebox for the 13th of July 2012. My name is TotalBiscuit, rounding up your daily Steam deals available over on the Steam client, and the Steam website, and the Steam app, and the Steam satellite network. I'll be trying to bring you one of these as often as I can. At the moment, I'm still out on the West Coast in a hotel room, which is why this microphone sounds the way that it is, so it may be intermittent going to that point. Once I get back home on Monday, I will bring you regular Steam sale boxes until the end of the summer Steam sale. Now, what do you need to know about the Steam sale? Some people seem to forget this. The first rule of the Steam sale is never buy a game unless it goes on daily deal or until the last day. If you never see it on daily deal, don't buy it until the last day. Why? Because it may go on daily deal at some point, and then you'll be kicking yourself. Steam has this tendency of offering fairly tasty discounts, maybe 25 to 50% in a title, and then dumping it on the daily deals for 75% off, so you end up kicking yourself. Not a very smart thing to do. If you're absolutely desperate for the game, then, well, pick it up, but don't come crying to me if you end up seeing a bigger discount later down the line. Secondly, they do have the overlap system in place from last time. What this means is this time around that you can purchase any game from the previous day's daily deals, that's pretty difficult to say, about 12 hours after the sale itself actually ends. So it is entirely possible, if you happen to pick up this sale box late, that the deal is still on. So go and check on the front page of Steam. You'll find yesterday's deals below the current daily deals, just down at the bottom of the client there. This time around, Valve has introduced a couple of new systems. The first one is the flash sale. These are very, very quick sales, usually worth picking up because they will be around 75% off. There'll be a pretty deep discount one way or the other. At the time of speaking, we've got Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition, Worms, Horde, and Lara Croft, and the Guardian of Light up there, but probably by the time you've seen this video, they will be gone. Worth checking regardless. You'll find the flash sales below the fold on the website, so you need to scroll all the way down on your Steam client just below the community choice, and then you'll find the flash sales there for purchase. Bear in mind there is also now a public vote system which allows you to choose between 3 different titles, vote on what you want, and then eventually it will actually become a deal that will appear, so that's pretty damn awesome. As regards to any kind of bonuses that are available in this Steam sale, there is a badge system, but it's not entirely clear what that does, if anything, at this point. If you want to see what badges you've earned so far, head over to the Community tab on Steam, select Profile, then look on the right, and you will see that no problem whatsoever. Again, we don't know if they actually do anything. Valve has been very tight-lipped on this at this point. Alright, let's kick it off with the daily Steam deals, shall we, for the 13th of July. Once again, bear in mind that these will roll through an additional 12 hours after the completion of the daily deals, so chances are you will not miss them. Unless, of course, you're crazy, living under a rock, or just really, really slow. Alright, let's kick it off then, shall we? First game on the list is Anno 2070. 50% off, that's 25 bucks, 25 euros in Euro Tier 1 and 2. £14.99 for that as well in the UK, so the US getting the best deal there slightly. Anno 2070, really nice economic management game with some limited combat elements. It's from the Anno series, which was previously all kind of set in the Age of Sail. This one's set in the future after a major environmental catastrophe. It's got a very interesting mission and faction system that wasn't in the previous set of games. It's a very good-looking game. It's very absorbing. There's a lot of content there. Personally, I really like the Anno series. I've had a lot of good experiences with them. The problem with this one is that it's got some pretty nasty DRM. It's got a 3-machine activation limit. They had to patch it because when you changed your graphics card, when you upgraded your machine, it was actually using up an activation, which is, quite frankly, unbelievable. So I would kind of ward people away from it on the basis of that DRM. I believe it is using the Uplay system that most of the Ubisoft games use these days. It does also have online features. It doesn't require you to be online. You can actually enable an offline mode, but it does have some online features there. Honestly, the use of this Tages DRM is probably enough to put a lot of people off, and I wouldn't blame them. What I would say, though, is if you are going to pick it up, and obviously since it's discounted, you're thinking, oh, well, the DRM doesn't bother me that much, then bear in mind that you can get the whole lot, which includes all of the DLC packs and little pre-order bonuses for the same price that you can get the game on its own for. Just scroll down to the bottom of the page. You'll be able to find it there, so I'd highly recommend grabbing that as opposed to just grabbing the game on its own. Okay, going on to more Ubisoft games, we've got From Dust, 75% off. That's $3.74, €3.74, £2.99. This game suffers from having some pretty nasty mouse control. It was a port from consoles. It's kind of a Populous-style game, whereby you manipulate the elements in order to save your tribe and destroy other tribes and things like that, which sounds pretty cool, and it is. The problem is that the mouse translation from the gamepad was absolutely diabolically bad. At launch, it had quite a lot of performance issues. Most of those have been resolved in the patch, but I've got to say on PC, let the buyer beware. If you do want to play it with a controller, you will have a decent time with it. If you want to play it with a mouse, I think you're going to struggle. If you are looking for a strategy game, however, do bear in mind that while it evokes memories of Populous, and it's kind of similar in that way, it's essentially just a puzzle game. That's what it really is in a nutshell. The strategy part isn't actually all that important, and the game is quite linear, to say the least. So, for me, that one's probably an avoid, if I'm totally honest, on the basis of how bad a port it really is. Alright, we've got the Indie Bundle 2, and this contains 5 games for the price of $10, €10 in European Tier 1, €6.99 in Tier 2, which actually makes it the best deal if you happen to be in that pricing region, and £6.99. The games in this bundle are Botanicula, I Divine Cybermancy, Oil Rush, Splice, and Universe Sandbox. If I'm totally honest, I haven't played a lot of I Divine Cybermancy. I've heard some interesting things about it, as in, it's intriguing if you can get a couple of people to play with you, and if you can deal with its weird eccentricities. It's kind of like a Half-Life 2 mod with a sort of FPS RPG in a cyberpunk-style universe going on. It's fairly interesting from what I've seen, but I could not get into it to save my life. I think I'd have to have people kind of lead me through the game and show me why it's actually good, but if you're looking for something a little bit off the wall, then that might be worth it. Botanicula is probably the standout game in that particular bundle. That's an absolutely fantastic game. Admittedly, is it worth getting the entire bundle at that price just for Botanicula? Probably not. You can grab that on its own for 33% off if you so desire, or sit around waiting and see if it ends up in a daily deal, which is probably a better idea. Oil Rush, I did a WTF is of. You can check that out by clicking the link on the screen right now. That game is not exactly amazing. It's fairly fun. It's a good-looking game, but as a strategy, it's very, very light. It's kind of like a mixture of an RTS and a tower defense, whereby you don't have free movement with your units. You just send them between points on the map, and they go via a preset direction. It's, I suppose, like Waterworld, the tower defense game. I wasn't hugely impressed by it, and the single-player campaign is a little bit uninspired, so perhaps not with that. Splice and Universe Sandbox I haven't played, so for that bundle, it's okay, but it's certainly nowhere near as good as Indie Bundle 1, which is in there yesterday, and if you can still grab that, I would highly recommend that you do so, because it is packed with fantastic titles, well worth actually getting your hands on. Alright, let's move on, shall we, and have a look at another game on this list. We're going to be having a look at Max Payne 3 for 50% off. That takes you down to $30, €24.99 or £14.99, which is by far the best deal. The UK gets a nice one on that. When it comes down to this game, I did a WTF viz of it, and my impression of it was quite simply there are too many cutscenes, and it doesn't evoke the memory of the previous 2 games. There just simply isn't enough action in that game for me to justify playing it. I feel the story drags out far, far too much. I think the writers got a little bit wanky with their interpretation of Max Payne's character, and I just don't like watching movies rather than playing games, and it interrupts you so much you can barely get into the rhythm. So for Max Payne 3, I'd actually say avoid at this price if you're not into the more modern style of third-person shooter, I guess, which is every 5 minutes you're going to get a hell of a lot of cutscenes. Yeah, not exactly great. I was a much bigger fan of the previous games, needless to say. They were a heck of a lot better in that regard. A lot of the story was delivered via dialogue in the head of Max Payne while he was shooting people, or in the form of those absolutely fantastic noir comic book cutscenes that it had going on there. That was pretty damn awesome. Alright, let's have a look at the next game. Now, this one is actually a contender for my deal of the day here. This is Payday The Heist. This is not a game that a lot of people know about, unfortunately, and that's really a crying shame, because it's quite good. It's $5, €4.74 or £3.74. If you want a more in-depth impression of what this game Then there was a series done over on Jesse Cox's channel. That's youtube.com/omfgcatter. He did a series on Payday. Payday reminds me somewhat of Left 4 Dead in the 4-player co-op style of it, but it's about breaking into various banks and making off with a hell of a lot of money. It's a very tense game, honestly. It's got some really fun mechanics. It's a great co-op experience. The shooting's nice and meaty. The game's a bit stilted in places, a little bit janky. You can just feel that there's not a huge amount of polish there, but the ideas behind it are solid, and the implementation is pretty damn good as well. So if you want to go rob banks, then this is a fairly reasonable game to do it in, as far as I'm concerned, and it is very, very cheap for the price. There's a lot of enjoyment to be had from Payday The Heist, so by all means, do go and check that out. Next game on the list, Sonic Generations. That's 66% off, which takes us down to $10.19, €10.19, and £6.79. There is a WTF is of this. I have it right here on the screen. You can just go click it, and if you want a more in-depth look at it, I did give this number 10 on my top 10 list of 2011 for a very good reason, because it's the best Sonic game we've seen in a very, very long time. That's a pretty good price for the amount of content that's actually on offer, as far as I'm concerned, for this title. The UK in particular should be picking that up for that price. That is a wonderful price for a game of very high quality. The PC port's pretty good. I noticed every now and again that I might get a frame drop on one of the chemical plant levels. Not a huge deal. Control-wise, you can definitely use the keyboard with it, although I would recommend using a controller, because at the end of the day, it is a Sonic game one way or the other. And for the 3D sections, good luck using mouse and keyboard for that. That really will not work all that well for you at all, so I would highly recommend a controller for that game if you want to play the modern-day sections, which, sadly, you will need to do in order to actually progress in the game. Please avoid the DLC, quote-unquote, the Casino Nights pinball level. It is an absolute waste of your time and money. Please, no. Just don't. Alright, moving on to The Binding of Isaac. Super cheap, this one. 75% off, $1.24, €1.24, or 99 pence. At that price, I really can't say no to it. I mean, it was cheap enough to begin with, but this is a rather unique gross-out game, I would say. It's a bit like a roguelike RPG mixed with Zelda in a very, very creepy setting. It's very hard to describe, but I did do a WTF is during the WTF-a-thon stream of this particular title. You can go and check it out. Click the link on the screen right now if you would like to have a more in-depth look at The Binding of Isaac. There is a new piece of DLC out for this, actually, the Wrath of the Lamb, which is supposedly a very good piece of DLC for that, so you may want to consider picking that one up. If you grab the collection, you'll get 75% off everything, so that's probably worthwhile. It does play just a little bit like Zelda, I suppose, with some little RPG elements in there, and it's got this weird psychological element to it that just makes me feel dirty when I play it. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's certainly a very unique thing, and it is from one of the guys that brought you Super Meat Boy, so that's what the art style is inspired by there. Alright, let's move on to something which can be considered DLC, I suppose, considering it's for a free-to-play game. It's the starter pack for Tribes Ascend on Steam, 75% off. Gives you it for $5, €4.74, £3.74. This starter pack contains some rather juicy items, and it's a good amount of money saved. So what you get with this thing, even though it says 75% off, by the way, it actually isn't. The release price of this starter pack was $9.99. And even though it's claiming it was $20 originally, which I guess it might have been at some point, maybe it was just a launch day bonus, it's still worth about $25, including everything that's there. So what's it got? 50% lifetime XP boost, 4 bonus weapons for base classes, which is the Soldier's Spin Fuser, the Pathfinder's Thrust Pack, which is not a weapon at all, the Pathfinder Light Assault Rifle, and the Juggernaut MIRV Launcher. So they're pretty useful. 800 Tribes Gold is what you get with that as well. It also unlocks 4 perks for you in the Technician class and the Infiltrator class. If you do want to start playing Tribes Ascend, this is definitely one of the better bundles that you can get. It is worth $25, as I've said before, and it will give you a nice start and not limit you too much in that particular game. So I would probably say yes on the Tribes Ascend starter pack, honestly, but it is not as amazing as a deal as Steam seems to make it out to be, but you're still saving a hell of a lot of money on it. Alright, last but by no means least, this is my game of the day, folks. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine. $7.50, €5 or £5. So the Europeans getting, I believe, the best deal on that one by the looks of it. So I did a WTF viz on this. You can check it out with the link on the screen right now. This game is a third-person, I like to just call it a mash-em-up, because that's what you essentially do to your enemies. You just mash them into a fine paste. It's a trample fest. You are a living god of war, essentially, a space marine. You smash your way through enemies. The combat is extremely kinetic, very explosive, and good fun. Some people would say it's repetitious. Personally, I love games like that, so that's a non-issue to me, but I wouldn't disagree that it's a very repetitious game. It's linear, you shoot stuff, occasionally you get a jump pack and you're able to smash people around with that. You get a wide variety of different weapons. The story is, of course, steeped in Warhammer 40,000 lore, so I certainly think that helped me enjoy it. Now, as regards to its last ability, you're looking at maybe a 6-7 hour campaign, which, in my opinion, is totally worth it for the price they're offering. You've also got a multiplayer mode. Multiplayer is better than it was when they started off. Like, you can actually mute people on the voice over IP now. It is still a peer-to-peer lobby-based system, however, so there are no dedicated servers for this game. What's worse is they have put in a couple of DLC packs, which add additional modes, which have kind of split the community. There are 2 DLC for that, which are essentially map packs, Chaos Unleashed map pack and the Dreadnought DLC. Both add more maps and modes, and you can't play them unless you happen to have those DLC. So if you are interested in the multiplayer, it's a fairly enjoyable multiplayer mode. It's not the best ever, but it's okay. It's reasonably fun with just kind of standard Call of Duty style progression system in there. It's pretty stompy. It's got a lot of impact behind the combat, which I do very much enjoy, and it's got some very fun melee stuff in there. I would also recommend picking up those map packs. Now, if you do want to do that, there is a complete bundle. The complete bundle will essentially double the price, though, so you do need to watch out for that. And it comes with a lot of other very cosmetic DLC. I don't really think it's an amazing deal, because you got stuff like the Golden Relic Bolter and the Golden Relic Chainsword and additional skins and unlocks for armor parts, which don't actually benefit you in any way. So I don't know if that's really worth picking up, if I'm totally honest. 40k fans will have already bought this game anyway, and will have probably bought the chapter pack that they wanted to have their armor set. Like, I bought the Legion of the Damned pack because that's a fantastic set of skins. But if I'm totally honest, if you're new to the 40k universe and you don't follow it that heavily at all, then you can just skip all of that DLC aside from the multiplayer stuff. Personally, if I was you, I'd just buy the game and not even bother with any of it, because the multiplayer is the most forgettable part of that game. Just play it for the single player, enjoy it for what it is, and then just set it aside. And regardless, because of how fun the single player is, I would have to nail this as my deal of the day, because it is a fantastic discount for a really enjoyable game. Alright folks, that's me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the sale box. Remember that if you happen to catch this sale box tomorrow on the 14th, these deals may still be available with the 12-hour rollover that's being done over on Steam at the moment. So remember to scroll down and check and see if the previous day's deals are still there. I'll see you next time.